Today's episode of The Ride is brought to you by Weaver Leather.
Hi, guys, and welcome back to the Ride Podcast. I'm Michaela.
And I'm Nicole.
And for this episode, we are sitting down with Brad Barkemeyer, which we all know and love Brad. He is one of the most trusted horse and rider experts. He's in the magazine, on Horse and Rider On Demand, just about everywhere. We have Brad.
Yeah, so excited to finally have Brad on the podcast. He's just such a cool guy, and his story's really cool. And I just love how he grew up in Montana around horses, and he just found himself in the horse show industry and realized that's where he belongs. So it's a great story. You learn more about him and his family and his background and some of his mentors and Brad, like Michaela said, we love him. He's such a fun person to be around. And so I think everybody's gonna love this podcast. You get to kind of learn more about Brad. You guys see him on demand all the time, but now you can kind of learn more about him and his story.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things in this podcast that I didn't know about Brad. So it was kind of eye-opening for myself to learn a little bit more about him, even though, we already consider him a friend.
Well, before we get started in that interview, let's take a few minutes to cover some of the current events that are going on in the horse industry. First, the American Horse Publications, which Horse and Rider is a member of, is launching their 5th equine industry survey. So it's really important that we hear from the people that we're, providing this information for. So if you're a horse owner who lives in the United States, and currently owns or manages at least one horse, be sure to check out the survey and tell us what you're thinking and the things that are important to you. You can visit the website at ahpequineindustrysurvey.com, and it's available until March 30th. So if you are wanting to provide some feedback so that we know what people are looking for in the horse industry, head over there, take this quick survey, and let us know.
Yeah, it won't take much time at all. So please be sure to do so. I know it might not be your favorite thing to do, but we can really use this information. And then another thing that I wanted to talk about is the fact that you guys really love the Ride podcast, but there are so many other podcasts that are within the Equine Network, which is our parent company, that you guys should be checking out too. So we sit down with some great horsemen and women, but the other podcasts within our brand get to do a bunch of other fun and neat things. You might be familiar with the Ask Annie podcast, which is hosted on horseandrider.com. So you can listen to her do horse products and reviews. And then there's Beyond the Saddle podcast, where Katie, she goes and interviews people who have careers within the horse industry that are outside of horse trainers. And then there are so many more. So just go and check out all of those.
Yeah, no, if you find yourself, bored while you're cleaning stalls or doing barn chores and just need something to listen to, those are some of our other favorites that are currently going on. And hopefully you'll learn a little something new.
For sure.
Another thing that's currently going on is the NRCHA Celebration of Champions. So they have their World Championship going on, but they also have the World's Greatest Horseman going on, which is a huge event. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. There's some live streams going on if you visit NRCHA's website. If you go to the Celebration of Champions section, they have both arenas that you can watch. But I haven't seen the World's Greatest Horseman in person, but it is really cool. I love that, some of these legendary riders are riding the same horse in 4 events, and it's, kind of the best of the best. And you get to see some really cool horses compete. Brad Barkemeyer, who we're interviewing in this podcast, is going to be partaking in the World's Greatest Horseman. And so if you're interested in watching, be sure to check it out online. However, I have to say, I'm kind of glad I'm not in Fort Worth right now, because I saw a Facebook video my friend who lives in Fort Worth just posted of a huge pile up from all the ice over there. It's really cold here in Colorado. Michaela and I were just talking about that off air because we're supposed to get into the negatives this weekend, which is pretty unlikely for where we live in Colorado anyway. But yeah, I saw Fort Worth has an ice storm, so it's got to be challenging getting the horses ready for that kind of event with that kind of weather.
Yeah, that's what think I probably saw the same video and it was really scary. So it made me glad that I wasn't down there because around this time last year, I was down in Fort Worth for the American semifinals. So didn't qualify this year, but I was really kind of thankful that that was the case because I would not want to be in those kinds of conditions. But that's one thing that I did miss out on last year is going to watch the world's greatest horseman. And I wish I would have just taken the time to go and watch it because that's something that I really want to see in person.
Yeah, and I believe there's most of the people that make the finals are professionals, but non-pros are eligible to compete. And I think a couple years ago, Abby Phillips, Kelby Phillips' wife, who is a non-pro rider, I think she placed like third or fourth, and she's a female and she's also a non-pro. So that was really exciting. I saw somewhere online that she's competing again this year, so I'm really excited to see how she does and see if she can keep up with the pros again because the year that she made the top 5, her rides were phenomenal.
Yeah, no, it's super cool to watch some of those riders, but we will for sure be cheering on Brad. But let's dive into this interview.
Today's episode is brought to you by Weaver Leather's new Pro Tack collection, which is handcrafted using the finest Herman Oak premium russet harness leather and non-rust hardware for long-lasting reliability and performance.
Yeah, their leather is dipped in oil, dressed with saddle butter, and hand rubs for an exceptional feel. And I know this because I own Weaver Leather tack, and it is some of the softest tack that I own.
Absolutely. I know when I did some video work with Brad Barkermeyer, who is sponsored by Weaver, I got to use some of their equipment, and you're so right. The leather was nice and soft. I love that it was already broken in because stiff reins are my biggest pet peeve because nobody has time to break in reins. Like, I want nice, supple reins when I put them on my bridle. So I love what they're doing.
Yeah, for durable tack that's perfect for work or play, the Pro Tack is an exceptional choice.
So you can view the entire Herman Oak ProTac leather collection online at www.ridethebrand.com/ProTac, or you can check it out at your local Weaver Leather dealer. We are back with another episode of The Ride, and today we are here with Brad Barkermeyer, who is a very well-known name to the horse and rider audience. He's been a part of the magazine for a while now, and he was also one of the first experts that we worked with for Horse and Rider On Demand. So I'm sure you've seen him on our social media, on video, in the magazine. We've done win-a-days with him. Brad is a rock star and literally does anything and everything that we ask him to do. So we're so appreciative of it. But thanks for joining us and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, you do everything with us, and we're so appreciative of it. And I'm actually even more appreciative of it because, Brad, you're the only reason that I even have a show career again because I suckered you into doing a lesson with me for On Demand, and now I have a horse.
That's
And
perfect.
so I literally would not be doing what I'm doing right now if it weren't for you. So I am extra thankful for you.
Well, it may be good, it may be bad. You never know.
I have gone to the dark side and I have no desire to go back.
Yeah, that's great.
So I guess, our audience is really familiar with who you are as a horse trainer because you do so much video content with us and everything else. But maybe let's start at the beginning because you grew up riding and you've been in horses your whole life, but you're from Montana and you didn't really get into the show stuff until you were out of school, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I was primarily doing ranch work. Um, Starting colts kind of was a real early passion of mine to take those 2 year olds that or even yearlings that hadn't been handled a lot and try to develop a relationship with them that way and bring them along to just do ranch work or be well behaved riding horses. That ranching background kind of led me into the rodeo events where we team roped and calf roped through high school with a little stint in the saddle bronc riding, which I claim to never have been very good at, but I really respect that sport too. But yeah, so I worked for a couple in college that had show horses, and that was kind of my first introduction to the Western performance horse. Kind of an eye-opening experience, having not been around the refinement that you see in reining and working cow horse and even the rope horses that were being shown at the AQHA events. So that opened my eyes and gave me a real new direction to run towards.
So the people that you were working for, what did they mostly do? Or was it like they showed in everything and anything and you just got like a whole education on the horse show world in general?
Yeah, that's the thing about Montana's, fairly rural. So the population there wasn't um, a big population that were just concentrating on one particular event. So the people I worked for was David and Gary Lynn Avery, and they primarily did cow horse. Gary Lynn did the cow horse, and then David did the rope horses. And they showed in the halter, and they showed reiners, and were given lessons to all different kinds of people that would come through their barn. Being in Bozeman in a college town, it was really a good place to be because a lot of young people got to go through that program and kind of get an eye into the horse show business.
So, how exactly did you fall into them exactly as you went to college and stuff to start showing?
So I lived in the dorm my freshman year. A good friend of mine somehow got hooked up with them the first semester. And of course, my roommate and I were tearing around town trying to find odd jobs here and there that we could work on our in between classes just to try to make some extra money. And ironically, the kid that was working for them during the first semester didn't come back for a second semester of college. So created an opening. And I was running towards the door when I heard he wasn't coming back to try to get in there and get some action.
I like it. Put yourself out there and was able to do something with it. That's great.
Well, and I think
Uh,
it's kind of important to note too that, you know, starting in this business is um, very much one of those deals where you got to start at the bottom. And there's no easy way around that. And here we are in Bozeman, Montana, in the middle of winter, and we got 10 or 15 stalls in the barn to clean every day, and then outside pens that had to be cleaned, and you're trudging through snow carrying hay to cattle and horses, and if you don't have a passion for the industry, if you don't have passion for those kind of animals and want to work towards that, you can't really expect to climb up the ladder and be a proficient horseman, I think.
oh, absolutely. And I mean, like you said, it's a hard career. And, even though you go up the ladder and you get to the point to where you are a, head trainer and showing all these really great horses, it's still hard work. It never gets easier. So you really
True.
do. You
That is
have to have a lot of love for what you do and passion, or it's just going to be really hard to get motivated to do anything.
exactly. That's an excellent point.
So, you're in Bozeman and you're getting involved in the horse show industry. What was the next step in your riding career? Did you stay in Montana for a little bit? Did you head elsewhere to get, a further education of the horse industry?
So I was, my intention at being in college was to graduate and work in corporate agriculture somewhere, I had a really strong background in FFA and all the student organizations through the College of Agriculture there, and a real passion for production agriculture. Wanted to kind of pursue that, so I was just training horses to make money and enjoy along the way, not necessarily going that route as a career path. I kind of left it to fate, I guess, is the best way to say it, is applying for a job with the National Cattlemen's Association in their policy office in Washington, D.C., towards the end of my senior year. And it was an internship that was to lead into probably a long-term job in their policy office, which I had some interest in. And came down, it was a nationwide search, came down to me and one other person as finalists for the job, and I didn't get it. And so having missed out on that opportunity, it was like, okay, well, plan B is I'm going to keep training horses. I had the opportunity to leave Montana and go to Roswell, New Mexico, where David Avery had moved to since he and Gary Lynn had been divorced. So he moved to New Mexico. And so I followed him down there and continued on the path of training tie down and team roping horses, primarily for the quarter horse shows.
Well, I think fate probably worked out better in your favor there. I think that you're probably having a little bit more fun riding horses every day, even though it is a job and sometimes it's hard work. Riding horses every day and training them and helping other people with their horses sounds like a lot more fun than sitting at a desk all day working on policies.
Unanswered prayers for sure, and that was totally the case. I couldn't be more thankful that it worked out the way it did, and knowing once I got out of Montana and started just getting more exposure to a nationwide industry. There was no question from that point on which if I had chosen the right path or not. It chose me, and I just went for it from there.
I think that's the special thing about the horse industry is that, it just seems to choose you, and that's just, it just becomes part of your life. And I don't, we're lucky to be in the industry in a different aspect. We're not horse trainers, but we're still involved in it. And I couldn't imagine, not being able to just talk about horses all day. It's pretty great.
Absolutely, and that's another thing that I've come to realize is there's so many, and kind of goes back to my passion and love for agriculture. There's so many different avenues that you can be involved and have a positive impact on the people, the animals, the businesses that are supported by the entire industry, and it's all intertwined. And I mean, I can't stress enough the relationships that are made, the people that you get to meet, and the quality of individuals that we're around daily. It's just a real blessing.
Absolutely. Okay, so you moved to New Mexico, and you said you were doing a lot of the team roping and or the tie down and team roping, right?
Yeah.
For the quarter horse stuff. So you probably got a lot of experience. Just the AQHA stuff is just so interesting as it is, with so many different events and so many different trainers and so many different avenues that you can kind of go down in that industry. Is that kind of how you first got involved with more of the cow horse stuff? Were you already doing the cow horse stuff, or how did you kind of get your feet, wet in that industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So being in New Mexico was very similar as far as um, being comparable to Montana in that regard, where we had people coming in for lessons and had horses in training, not just for roping, but doing other things as well as cow horse. And we helped a lot of youth kids out at that time in the state of New Mexico, and high school rodeo and stuff like that. But going to those quarter horse shows, especially at that time, it was just it was before things really got specialized. So I saw a lot of the older trainers that I really respect, and they were doing multiple events. They were showing their horses in the halter class, and they were, roping on their cow horses. And, there was a lot more diversity at that time. The people were striving to make AQHA champions, which is an award that you don't hear spoken of a lot anymore, just because of each individual discipline has gotten so specialized and competitive. So entering the quarter horse world at that time, I was really grateful to be around those horsemen and seeing the diversity that the quarter horse offers. So that number one was a real kicker for me, and trying to myself diversify. Um, I remember being at the World Show, my first time to the AQHA World Show, and sitting in the stands watching guys like Don Murphy showing the Rein Cow Horse, and just being in awe of the talent and horsemanship that was being exhibited at that event. So from then on, I knew that I wanted to get involved in that and the cutting and the rein work. Um, so David was really good to work for in that regard, because he would seek help from other trainers when we were traveling around to different shows in the different parts of the country. And we'd always make a point to visit Al Dunning's place when we were in Arizona, and we'd go up into Nebraska and Kansas and Texas, all over. And he was a real networking type of guy, so I was able to meet a lot of those guys and kind of get an idea on what they were doing to make a living and what they were doing to try to be successful horsemen. So that really fed my interest and spurred me on to try to make a run for an assistant position elsewhere, to continue that college experience. I call it my graduate school, right? So I did my undergrad at Montana State, and then I got my doctorate in horse training from David Avery and Al Dunning.
That's not a bad combo to get a master's in.
Right.
No, I love that. And I think it's really important to surround yourself around people who, yes, they are professionals, but they're not afraid to ask for help from other professionals. And coming from the industry I came from, there were a lot of people like that, but there were also a lot of people who just kind of kept themselves and didn't really branch out and work with other people. And now, as like working for the magazine, I'm so lucky I get to talk with people from all over the country, and I love being able to take something from this person's program and this person's program and ask this person this question. And so I think it's huge that the people that you surrounded yourself with were always looking to learn and expand their knowledge, and it says a lot about their training programs.
Yeah, for sure. And it taught me to make sure to do the same thing and try to keep an open mind and not get too narrow focused on your individual personal goals. Sometimes you get in your own way just because you're so goal oriented, and you got to let other influences come in that are positive. That's the key there, is finding the people that are going to be a positive influence in your life. So I was lucky that way, for sure.
Well, kind of touching on goals, how do you go about your goals as a professional? I know being an amateur and a non-pro, we sometimes have different goals and how we accomplish them. So being a professional, how do you go about that?
I think remaining flexible is the thing that I've learned the most about that part of it, because there's so many variables that go along. Let's take a calendar year, for example, and you start the year with a handful of futurity prospects and some, maybe middle-aged horses that you're trying to work on to go into the Hackamore classes and derbies. And then you got your older horses that are in the bridle and maybe are more finished, that are on you got to decide what shows fit the horse's ability the best to keep them successful. And then along the way, make sure everybody's sound and healthy, and all the other unknowns that can pop up. So flexibility is key there. But I always try to kind of take a little time at the end of the year. We're basically done showing in that November, December range, and try to just take some time over the holidays and really take a good look at what horses we have that are remaining in the barn from carryover from the year before, and what may be coming in after the first of the year. And then just kind of sit down and try to decide what shows, like I said before, fit the horse's competition level, and then I always have some individual goals of my own, as far as I want to win the world's greatest horseman contest, I want to win the futurity, and I want to win an AQHA world championship. So just guiding those horses to get qualified for the proper shows, making sure they're prepared and conditioned, and then doing my job as a trainer and showman to get that done if you can.
So, I mean, as you talk about this, I'm sure you've kind of probably picked up some of your goal assessing ideas from Al Dunning, because as you said, you started working with Al Dunning, who you've said many times is one of your, big mentors. How you said that you did lessons with him when you were working for David, but is that kind of how you ended up working for him as well, or how did you end up in Arizona?
I'll never forget it. David and I were driving across the middle of Kansas, going to some quarter horse show in the summertime on a long open road, and I was thinking, man, I want to do more than just show rope horses. And so we got to talking about that, and I said, I really like the cow horse and the cutting, and he just looked straight at me and said, well, if you're going to learn it, you might as well learn from the best. So why don't you call out? And so I did. And then at that point, David and Al actually had some customers that had horses in both places. So I had a good relationship with them. So I guess the long story short, I called Al to see if he had any openings, and he didn't at that time. But he told me to make sure that I, check in with him periodically, or if I ever got to Arizona, to come by and meet him and, see the ranch and everything. Well, in the meantime, he had kind of asked around and called some references, people that he knew me, and vice versa. Turned out he had a guy leave, so he called me up and asked me to come out for an interview. And I drove out and spent a couple of days and rode with them pretty much all one morning. And by that afternoon, he offered me a job, and it was for very little pay and a lot of hours, but it was a step I knew I needed to take at the time, and it worked out really well, because I was there a little over 8 years.
Oh, wow. I had no idea you were there for that long. But yeah, like you said, a little pay, but that's a once in a lifetime experience that I think a lot of people in this industry would have killed to have. So that's pretty special.
Yeah, I felt really fortunate, and I guess just knowing that, making those changes at that time in your life, it's always scary to make change, but when things kind of start lining out and feels right, without taking that chance, knowing that it may not work, and that's okay. It's just, you got to take that step and see, give yourself a chance to grow. If you don't, you stay in one place and, kind of become complacent, and that's not any way that I wanted to live. So it was scary, but it was good, and it ended up being like the perfect scenario for me to start my own business, because while I was working at Al's, he was starting to slow down a little bit, especially on the cow horse side of things. So I was able to kind of step in and take over some of those responsibilities. Uh, Al was really good about giving me responsibility, and I ended up kind of managing that place so that he could just focus on the other things that he was doing as far as training and his publications and everything. So I was able to kind of take a test run at running my own place, and having customers that were looking to me for those kind of answers, and kind of have Al as a safety net, where I was still getting a salary, and but yet I was still doing all the work as if I was on my own. And so during that time, uh, I was collecting bits and extra buckets and blankets that people were getting rid of, that just so that I knew all the stuff I was going to need if I ever did go out on my own, that I wouldn't have to go buy it all right off the bat, and have those extra expenses when you're trying to start your own business. So I was able to do a lot of those things while I was gainfully employed, which worked out great, and I was able to start my family there. So yeah, it was a really good stepping stone.
That's huge, to be able to kind of learn how to run a business without having to put yourself out there and just kind of be like, all right, well, I'm self-employed now, and it could work and it could not. But that's huge, because I grew up in the horse industry. I have friends who decided they were going to go and become professionals, and not only do you have to have a barn and stalls and the horses, you have to have the trucks, the trailers, the blankets, the, buckets, the bits, the tack. I mean, that tack is expensive. And so that's a huge thing to have been able to kind of be ahead of the curve there and not put yourself in a load of debt when you decided that you were going to go out on your own.
Absolutely. And that's what kept me there as long as I was, because I could see that kind of snowball effect taking place, where it was just I was growing, in one place, where it was like I didn't have to do it all at once. It was gradual and safe and secure. At the same time, learning every day, learning what to do and what not to do, how to talk to sponsors, how to talk to companies that wanted to endorse, you endorse products. It was one of the main things I learned from Al, and developing the relationships with those people. Because yeah, it's important to win stuff in the arena and be visible, for people to have a desire to endorse products through you. But I tell you, a lot of it is just developing those relationships and maintaining that, where they know that you have good morals and ethics, and that you're going to represent their product well. So that was a big piece of what I learned there too.
Well, I'm sure part of that also comes natural to you because, Brad, I know Nicole and I are always so excited when we get the chance to work with you because you just have such a bright personality and you're always happy and just so much fun to work with. So I'm sure all of your sponsors are super, super thankful to have you on their teams.
Thank you. Feelings mutual.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a reason that we've done so many Win-A-Days together, and we hopefully have another one coming up depending on how coronavirus is looking in the spring. But yeah,
Exactly.
no, it is super important to think about those things, and I don't think a lot of people do, especially these kids that are, young and just want to train horses and be the best and win those really, insanely looked upon awards. But
Right.
there's so much more that goes into being a horse trainer that people forget about, and the sponsors and being able to work with them and talk with them. And I, especially now understanding social media, I know that sponsors are wanting, their endorsees to post on social media and, be in their videos and be in their posts and photos and blogs. And there's a lot that comes with it.
Oh, for sure. And that's where my wife Mindy is a savior for our business in that regard. And she does everything. She takes care of the kids and the house, and at the same time she's taking care of me. It's like, you know, helping maintain communication with all of our people, and just keeping organized with the billing and the books, and I just can't say enough of what an integral part of our business that she is. And the fun part is every now and then she gets to show, and she does well in the show pen. So I'm really proud of her for that, as well as my kids. My two boys are really good boys, and they're having fun riding and showing. And so it's not just a career, it's a lifestyle.
Totally. And we have to say that we also love Mindy because I text her and I ask if you will do an Instagram takeover. And she is amazing and does everything that I ask her to do. And no, Mindy's amazing. And she's a world champion. So she's not just a good rider, she's a world
Exactly.
champion.
You know,
So you're at Al's. You've been kind of preparing to go out on your own. So when did you finally make the move and decide that it's time to leave and kind of go out on your own and do it yourself?
yeah, I don't remember exactly, waking up one day and go, okay, it's time. I think just situationally there at Al's, um, for whatever his program had evolved, and so had mine. We talked a lot. We'd go in the office and talk about business and where we were headed and goals and stuff like that. And I think I just presented it to him one day and said, hey, what do you think about if I just rent some stalls from you and run my own business here? And the idea was received well. We kept it on where I still was kind of managing his place as far as, um, helping with maintenance, getting hay ordered for the cattle and the horses and bedding, those kind of daily operations type stuff. So we were basically sharing those responsibilities, and I could kind of take some of the workload off of him for those things, and yet still um, start building my own clientele. So I stayed at his barn and started my own business, had my own clients, rented stalls from him, and it worked out really well for a short while. But an opening came up down the road at a different training facility, and it was a place where I could expand. And that's the one thing at Owls that I was a little limited on space there for, because he was still blowing and going pretty hard, and wanted to keep a full barn. So opportunity arose that there was another facility that just happened to have two other reined cow horse trainers working there already, Corey Cushing and Shad Parkinson. So it was like a perfect fit for me there too, because the three of us could work out of the same facility and help each other. And we were going to be, traveling to the shows together. And it was a natural fit. So a couple months into working, well, I would say 2 years probably into starting my own business, I made the move over to the place. It's called Bella Vista Ranch, and just maybe a mile west of Al's place, so just up the road.
Yeah, you all are kind of jammed in a little area over there. So
Yeah.
do you have any horses like from the very beginning that played an impact on your career from the start that you're just super thankful for?
Oh, for sure. There's a list of those, but I guess the one that stands out to me is the one my wife won the world show on. His name's Dulcie Smart Boomer. We call him Clark. And so the whole, the story behind his name is he was like Superman. He looks like the plain Jane newspaper reporter, but you get in that show pen, he jumps in the phone booth and comes out like Superman. But that was a really neat horse. He was one of the first ones I won limited aged event titles on at the Reined Cow Horse shows when I started going to those on my own, and showing in the limited open divisions and stuff like that, trying to get noticed, and he was one of those that kind of let me get in the winner circle on those derbies, and really, number one, gave me the confidence to be able to go show one and know that I could have a chance to compete with those guys. And he just was a special horse all the way through. We still have him. I mean, I think he's 16 now, and kind of semi-retired. My youngest boy rides him around a little bit, but he's pretty much living the good life now. And he's one that'll stay with us for forever.
I was gonna say it sounds like he definitely has his forever home, but 16,
Yeah.
that's not too old. I'm sure he
Got some years left, that's for sure.
That's really cool. Now the really crazy thing I think about the cow horse now that I'm actually getting involved in it is it really does take a special horse to gain your confidence up to be able to do something like the cow horse, because there's no second guessing when you're going down the fence. I don't have this experience personally because I'm not there yet, but just watching the other people that show in it really does take a special horse to gain that confidence, to make sure, because I mean there's no second guessing. You're either gonna do it or you're not.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a big part of it. And it's funny how, and I've talked to other trainers about this too, but you start off in your career, and if you've got one of those good horses, everything comes pretty easy as far as showing them, because you're just reacting. You're relying on your instinct. You're riding your horse. You're letting your horse do its job. And then we all go through this period of knowing too much, right? We get overeducated. We get over analytical. We start picking apart all the little things that can be just a tick better here and there. And we start trying to perfect everything. And we almost get in our own way, kind of in that middle portion of your career where you're like, you've got enough experience, you got the confidence, you got the right horses to ride, but things just aren't working right perfectly, and you're not winning all the time. So now you're starting to tweak everything, So it's a it's a really tough deal because you gotta stay true to yourself and do your job, right? Do the work and train your horse like you know you can. And then when you show, you gotta go let them do your job and trust in your training. And so we all go through that little funky stage of trying to over manipulate things and force things, right? And like you say, you either gotta go or it's not gonna work, right? So whenever, if you can get yourself back to that spot where before you knew how bad it really could be, trust in it, be confident, go show, and you win more, and your horses are happier. So it's been a roller coaster, but that's kind of the path a lot I think trainers get on, and it's hard to stay away from.
Yeah, no, I never really like actually thought about it. I always watched the cow horse, and I think it really piqued my interest when I first saw Down the Fence and was first getting involved in Horse and Rider. And I turned to my best friend who shows reiners, mind you. So it's not like we used to do the slow show stuff. But she's doing the reining now, and I'm like, I'm gonna do the cow horse. And she's like, "You're crazy." And I'm like, what do you mean I'm crazy? She's like, "No, you don't get to second guess when you're going down the fence. You're either going to get that cow or you're going to either kill yourself trying or you're going to pull up. Like there's no there's no in between." And I was like, I never looked at it like that, but I'm still going to do the cow horse.
There you go. Yeah.
But no, it's a lot of fun, and I can see how you would have gotten hooked into it because it's crazy fun. Is there a moment in your career as a professional, like a horse show or something, just like some moment in the arena that really just is a memory that you're going to hang on to forever?
Oh, I would say probably, oh, one of them would be I won the Hackamore Classic 2011 on a horse named Smarty, and he was a phenomenal athlete, really, really special horse. Kaylee Wilson had trained him in Canada and done some good on him as a 3-year-old, and I ended up with him. The owner was a snowbird, so she'd winter in Arizona and summer in Canada. So Kaylee and I were kind of sharing this horse back and forth. And anyway, long story short, that horse, I got everything to come together finally because he was real quirky. He was really just a extreme athlete, but it was hard to get everything to line up at the right time all the time. And at that show, he was locked in on target, and I won the Open, the Intermediate, the Limited, um, the Novice Horse, all 4 divisions. It was my first major aged event championship, and so I felt like I kind of had arrived. It was like, okay, I'm one of the guys. I made it. Uh, I was validating myself. I think that was like, okay, I belong here, right? So that was a real eye-opening and special moment that kind of put me on the map. And I thought after that, well, this is easy. You win these, and then you get better horses, and you just keep winning, right? It's not that easy.
Famous last words.
Right? Yep. Exactly.
No, that's a huge memory. It sounds like you kind of cleaned house there at that show, but yeah, it's always, even if you didn't win, it's those rides where everything just clicked and you're like, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to go." Those
Yes.
are the rides that I definitely remember more than the awards.
Absolutely. And like my wife always says, you can't eat a trophy. So winning those prizes is like, they're obviously very appreciated and important to us, but just that journey that you're on to try to, the amount of work that goes into that 2.5 to 5 minutes where you're in the show pen. And like you say, everything is aligned and it's working and it's easy. And it's like it's meant to be. You just feel invincible, and that feeling and having um, the support team around you that's cheering you on, and everything that comes together in those moments is really special.
So let's kind of sidestep over to another topic and maybe get into Horse and Rider on Demand a little bit because you and Bud Lion were, the first 2 people to be part of the platform, and you're still a huge part of the platform, and new videos are coming out every week with you guys. And I think I have another video shoot hopefully lined up now that coronavirus might be a little under control, hopefully. But I again am very appreciative of your on-demand experts because that's the only reason I'm showing and riding. But no, it's really interesting. And the video stuff was so new to me, and I'm sure new to you as well. But it is such a huge platform, and I love that you're able to connect with people all over the country now and help them with their horses, and not just cow horses or team roping or whatever, just everything in between. You're able to, work with these people and kind of help them become better horsemen from the comfort of their own home. What were your thoughts when we approached you about doing something like this?
I was so excited to have that platform because we can only reach so many people. There's only so many people that can come into my facility and take a lesson. I can do clinics throughout the year, which we do some, but with the show schedule, it's hard to get out of state and to take the time to do clinics. And even then, it's not a large audience, right? It's limited people that we can reach. So I felt like, wow, this is a great way to be able to have a little more reach and try to share some of the knowledge and share some of the experiences that I've uh, had, and be able to hopefully influence young horse trainers to want to become career showmen. um, just make better relationships between people and their own horses, even if they're recreational trail riding. um, just having that reach to be able to influence people in a positive way was really exciting for me. So, and I've been able to luckily traveled to Costa Rica a couple of times for clinics there. I've got um, customers from places like Switzerland that come over, and so that was a good avenue as well for me to be able to promote the Western performance horse lifestyle and the training techniques and the products we're using to get better and have not just a nationwide but a worldwide reach.
Well, I think some people just don't realize that, yes, and we've touched on this before, but yes, you're a cow horse trainer and a rope horse trainer, but so many of those techniques can apply to just your regular everyday riding. And I think that's so important for every horseman to know about. And that's what I really appreciate about your videos is I don't ride cow horses and I don't ride roping horses. I barrel race, but I'm able to watch your videos and go and watch you as we produce the videos. And I take lessons away from that I'm able to use on my own horses. I know there are drills that you've done for Horse and Rider on Demand that I'm out in my arena working on with my barrel horses. So it just goes across everything.
That's perfect, and I love hearing that because that's completely 100% correct. And uh, I I have to remind myself to not relate it to the cow horse or the roping all the time because those are my disciplines. But the fundamentals and the foundation that we're putting on these horses are, like you say, they're for every horse. It doesn't matter the breed, it doesn't matter the discipline. You've got to have control of your animal no matter what you're doing, right? And these are all tools and techniques that may or may not work on your particular horse, but it's worth a try. And it's stuff that they're not secrets, right? They're basic fundamentals that we just got to get out there that people need to know.
Well, and like Michaela had kind of brought up, it's not just for one specific kind of riding, but I think the one thing that I would like to get out, and I think we try as a brand, is that yeah, even if you're trail riding, your horse should still be able to side pass or do a turn or collect from an extended lope to a slow lope or lead changes. All of this stuff is really handy, even if you're a trail rider. I mean, it's so important that we teach our horses these basic horsemanship skills.
Absolutely. And I tell you what it does is it keeps the rides enjoyable. If the horse and the rider are communicating properly and it's a cohesive relationship, it just the whole purpose that most people have horses is for recreation, and recreation is supposed to be fun. And these are all tools. The things that we do are try to make that a more pleasurable experience for the horse and the human.
Absolutely. And you do such a great job with, showing people how to do it at home to where they can safely do it at home. And which is a huge thing because you don't want somebody who's never done a flying lead change to just go and, try and push their horse's shoulders over and start kicking with the other leg. There's so many steps before that actual lead change happens. And I kind of love that we've started doing these series where we start with like the super, super basic fundamentals and kind of build from that. So these people who are watching these videos are also growing with you as a trainer as you're, advancing in these skill sets, and we're putting them out on video.
Absolutely. And it's really important, I think, to stress there's a certain intimidation factor, I think, that goes along with the performance horse industry as a whole, and people that are not involved maybe have a little bit of an intimidation factor there, and thinking that their horse can't do it, or that they can't do it, or that there's no need for it because they're never going to show. All of those things. I mean, we're all trying to accomplish the same thing, and that's to have a better broke horse and have more fun when we're riding. So, if there's anyone out there listening that can take one thing home, it's don't be afraid to ask for help. And no matter how much the instructor has won or is publicized or it's famous, they're just real people. They're humans. They want to help. And the best thing you can do is just reach out and be open to educating yourself.
It's funny you say that because I've had a couple conversations with other trainers who, are very well known and have won world titles and are, technically famous. And they say the same thing where they're always so excited. And of course, there's always a right time when you're at a horse show. Maybe don't ask them as they're going into the ring on their, young horse.
Yeah.
But they're always so happy when somebody just comes up and goes like, hey, why do you do this? Or like, what is why, what are you doing here that looks so different than everyone else or whatever. And no, that's huge. And I wish, I even have to remind myself of that. And I work for a magazine where it's literally my job to ask trainers how they do stuff. And, I even get really, nervous at horse shows, and especially after doing 20 years in the all around world, I go to my first cow horse show and I don't know anybody. And I'm just like, big eyed, and I don't know who's who. I don't know like the warm up rules and how people, work the flag in between and, paying for cattle times. And I'm really thankful that I had friends to help me there because that would be extremely intimidating had I gone to my first horse show, didn't have a horse trainer, and was just watching all of this madness that makes sense to the people that are there every weekend. But somebody walking in for the first time, that's very intimidating.
For sure. Or it's organized chaos.
100%. So, all right. Well, I think this podcast is coming out when you are going to be at the NRCHA World Show. And before we started recording, you told me you are taking 6 horses. So can you tell us a little bit more about the horses that you're going to be showing and maybe the customers? I think you said your wife might have one. What can our audience, watch for when they're doing the live feeds?
So Mindy is showing Prince Ray is the name of her horse. He's a 6-year-old gelding that she qualified last year for the non-pro Hackamore. So she'll be showing him in the non-pro Hackamore. We've got a customer from New Mexico in the Derby showing a 5-year-old gelding in the Derby. I'm going to be showing one in the open Hackamore, gelding named 5-Star Rating. And he's a dual ray gelding that's owned by Chris Larson. And he's a really good friend and customer that's had some really nice horses over the years. So we're excited about doing well for him and that horse. And then I'm showing Moonstruck one time. His barn name is James. He's a brown gelding by One Time Pepto that's owned by the Kaplans, who own the facility that we train out of. And I've had some success with James in the aged events along the way. And he's to the age now and competition level of being competitive, I think, with that group of horses. So really excited. It's been several years since I've had one that I thought was competitive and good enough to show in the world's greatest. And this is definitely one that's got a shot.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited. I know that we'll be watching here in Colorado because we love supporting you guys. And sounds like you have a pretty good lineup this year. So hopefully all goes according to plan.
Yes, I hope so. It's there's a lot of moving parts, and the stars got to align, and a little luck never hurt anything. So we're anxiously hopeful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today, Brad. We, like Michaela said earlier, we just love working with you, and we always have so much fun when we get to talk and interact with you and do the video stuff. I wish people could get a behind the scenes video of what we're videoing, because there's usually more laughter going on at those video shoots than like any other part of the work experience.
Exactly. Well, life's too short not to have fun while we're doing it. So it's a pleasure. I love working with you guys. It's so easy talking to you both. I love it. So appreciate you having me.
We would like to once again thank our friends at Weaver Leather for bringing you this episode of The Ride. Remember to go check out their ProTac collection at www.ridethebrand.com/ProTac. Thank you guys for tuning into the Ride podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and please be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Follow Horse and Rider Magazine on social media and find us at horseandrider.com. If you guys have any questions or comments, please be sure to hit us up at horseandrider@aimmedia.com. We want to hear from you guys.
And if you like what you're listening to, be sure to leave us a review on iTunes.
How many stars, Michaela?
5 stars, please.